All right, so here we are. Now, instead of making more and more videos of me folding and so on and so forth, I just did it in the background. But in short, I've done the fold another 2 times since the last one. So this would be the 4th time that it's been done. It's now starting to show signs that it's ready to be bulk risen. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and we'll do one more shape. Then you'll see me, I'll flip it over. Then after that, we'll cover it and we'll leave it to rise. Now, what do we mean by bulk rise? It's not rising to fill this bowl. It never will fill this bowl with only 1 kilo. It's a big bowl. But what we're looking for is about, depending on the time and depending on the weather, you get 50% extra. You don't want it to rise too much, because if you let it rise to that 100% point, you overproof it. So what we're looking for is probably in this bowl here, we're probably looking for up to about that point there. So it would, if it was to go on its own, it might get to about there. So we want about 50%. So we'll get it to about that marker there. And then it will be taken out and shaped, which will be the next video after this one. So we'll go ahead and we'll see. And as you'll see as I do this, now it is a nice smooth dough. So it's showing, it's nice and smooth. It's showing great tension. It's holding that tension there. It's not splitting or anything. The bowl is complete. Like you can see that. It's a nice smooth ball of dough. And I'll get up a bit closer so you can actually see how smooth and glossy that is. So we're at that point now where the dough's been stretched. It's got great gluten. It's holding that ball shape. We don't want to overwork it. Okay. And what I'll do is I'll just grab it and I'll flip it over. Now, you don't have to do the flip. I do it. What I tend to do, why I think that's good, is what happens is as we're doing that folding, you're constantly tensioning up. And think of it if you wrap a present, you're pulling everything around, you're wrapping it on top. It can unravel that way, right? So if it was to open back up, it unravels across those folds. By me flipping it in there and then having that folded point on the bottom, what we're actually causing it to do is, as it's rising, it's stretching rather than undoing the gluten by opening those folds up again. It's actually stretching those folds out and extending that. So that later on when we turn this out, because to turn this out, you'll see the process later anyway, we'll turn it out onto the bench and we'll shape it and everything like that. But in the process of that, it is growing and building and strengthening those strands. So again, like before, we'll cover it. Now, this will sit out on the bench for at least another, like I said, 2 to 3 hours, 4 hours. So we're probably looking, I probably won't get onto this till probably about 5 o'clock today. So we started at 8. We're at 2:20, 2:30-ish now. Okay, so we're now going to about 5 o'clock. So like I said, this is a 24-hour process. You could bake tonight, but 90% of the time I chuck it. You'll see I'll put it in the fridge and we'll do a long fermentation and we'll actually bake in the morning. So that goes there. But what I want to also do is I'll just go and grab off the top of our fridge our starters within the container. Okay, so just take that one off. I'll take the lid off this one and I'll bring them a bit closer. Now you can see this one, beautiful bubbles. No, it could go a little bit longer. Okay, we could fill it up a little bit more, but we'll just leave it at that. This one here, the white, well, look at that. So that was our 12 o'clock marker, and we're sitting here. So you can see what I mean by it's just grown. It's grown exponentially. It's airy. It's bubbly. So what we'll do right now is we'll refeed these. Okay, we're going to have to feed these again. So what I like to do is, this stuff normally gets thrown out. Okay, and it's small amounts of flour, so I'm not normally too concerned. What you can do if you really wanted to is give this to someone else. So when I've had people ask for sourdough starter, this is when I take the sourdough starter. When I feed it this second time, I'll take it out of here and I'll give it to someone else. Now, I'll show you another trick. So what you can do is get yourself a frying pan, okay? And so put that there. and get yourself some oil. And this, so in this case, I'm just using a canola oil. So I just put a bit of oil in there. All right, we're not talking. Don't be light on it. Don't be worried about calories and that type of stuff. If you want to do this, let's do it properly. I'm Italian, so consequently, it's full fat or nothing. And what we'll do, again, we're going to take half of this out, but we're going to put it in here. So I'll take half out, put that in there. Again, wipe off the spoon. Don't want to contaminate things. And this one, again, the white's different. Again, like I said, I can pour this one out. So just carefully pour it out. Just make sure we're not taking too much out. And if you take too much out, don't stress. It will come back fine. Okay, so we've half emptied those. Now, what I like to do with this, and we'll actually need another spoon later, so I'll grab another one here, is you've got starter there. Really, what you've actually got there is bread. In short, it is a form of bread. So what we can do, and what I found is a good little trick, is put a little bit of salt, because remember there is no salt in this starter. We haven't added any salt to that starter, so add a little bit of salt there. Sometimes I'll go and put a squeeze of garlic, chewed garlic if you want to that. I'll put real garlic or fresh garlic or herbs or something else, and actually why not, we'll add a little bit of herbs in there as well too. So just again, a bit of herbs. Now what I'll do, a little bit of oil on the top and the bottom of the spoon just so it mixes, and mix this around. So just like we were folding it before with our hands in the bowl, what I'm doing here is pretty much folding the starter and mixing that white and the rye, because remember I've got two different starters here. If you had one starter, then all we're doing is really mixing that salt through, mixing those ingredients through, and just trying to combine them. There's plenty of oil still left on the bottom of the pan for it to move around in. Don't try and mix all the oil in, but in essence, just kind of form a bit of bread. So you can see there, that's enough. It's kind of mixed through. And what I'll do now is I'll leave that on a bench. What will happen is that will actually start rising again. See, we didn't overproof this. And because that's not overproof, there's more rising in here that can be done. There's more food that can be consumed. So I will sit that out on a bench, and what you'll find will happen when you do it yourself, if you decide to do it, is this will almost fill up to half the side. If you left it longer, it'll go a lot bigger. Half the side of that frying pan. To cook it when it's ready, so you just let it proof, it cooks. What you can do, and sorry I didn't prepare this earlier, what I like to do is I'll just get a lid off one of my saucepans that fits. So you can see it's a perfect fit on there. And I'll put this on the stove on a low to medium heat. So for instance, my stove has up to a 9-point setting. I will put it on setting 4 on the stove, and I will start cooking it. And what you're in essence doing is you're making a stove bread. So you leave it there, cook for a little bit with the lid on top. It'll steam up in there. You'll see it come up. Then you'll see the top of it. It kind of goes a bit translucent. So it's like it's in that transitional point between this sticky dough and starting to form into a bread. Similar to what you find if you ever make pancakes or bake a cake, and you start seeing that glossy top start transitioning. Same type of thing. Then you'll flip it over, and the underside will normally be a light brown, light to golden brown, and then you'll cook the other side as well for about the same amount until it gets that light golden brown, and it becomes a really nice flatbread. Fantastic with olive oil dips and what do you call it? I've got some in the cupboard here. Dukkha. So it works really well with that side of stuff. And you can just have it like that, or cut it in half and make it into a sandwich. Push some cherry tomatoes in here before you cook it, and turn it into a bit of a focaccia with a bit of cheese on the top. So you cook one, you push some tomatoes into there, you cook one side, flip it over, put cheese on top, put the lid back on, and it'll melt it. Put it in the oven. You get the point. It is a real versatile way of using up the leftover sourdough starter. Okay? So what's going to happen right now is I'm going to feed these again I have to unfortunately turn this off because the camera is hanging on top of the bucket that I have all the flour in at the moment. But I will feed these again. Again, the same mixture, 80 grams of flour, 80 grams of water, mix it around. Exactly what you saw me do in step 1 of this process. But as soon as I finish mixing it up, they will go straight into the fridge. And they will stay in the fridge now for a week. Okay, I store them for a week. You can store them up to a month before feeding them. I wouldn't. Personally, 2 weeks is about where I cut the limit at, and I'll feed it again inside of 2 weeks. But that's what I'll be doing right now, and I won't do it on camera, like I said, because the camera's sitting on the boxes. But they will go in the fridge, and then they'll be available for the next one, whether that's in a day's time or 2 days' time. If I was going to make a bread, for instance, in another day or two, what I would probably have done is I would have kept this starter, kept it in a bowl, kept it on a bench that night, and used it the next day or the day after. Because the one in the fridge will take at least a week or so to mature. If you have put in the fridge and you've gone, oh no, I want to make a bread in 3 days' time, don't stress. Take it out the day before and let it rise up, okay? Feed it as we did in step 1, but that bowl in step 1 you just use the next day, okay? Like we did today. So that's the process of getting that to that point. Like I said, this is going to sit here and rise now for at least the next 2 hours. This will sit here and rise for the next 2 hours because this will take about probably 2 hours to get to where it needs to go as well. And they will go in the fridge. And you'll be back at 5 o'clock with me when we will have finished the bulk rising of this and we'll start learning how to shape a high hydration loaf.